Church here, and welcome to the Game Grinder, and today we're doing a pickup video, and it has been a little while. Unlike the previous times when I had an extended break in between pickup videos, this one isn't a horde of games. I've actually slowed down with my collecting quite a bit, as I'm sure a lot of other people have with kind of the state of the world as it is right now. But of course, I have picked up a few things, and as always, I like to talk about them. So, with that said, let's get started. Now, I actually didn't pull down a few of the things I'm going to talk about. I've gotten a few collector's editions, of course, and this year has been the year of monster-sized collector's editions, so I didn't really have a place to put those, so I'm just going to refer to them, and I'm going to show clips. So, first up was the Resident Evil 3 Collector's Edition. Now, of course, this was a game I was very excited for, especially the Collector's Edition to go along with my Resident Evil 2 Remake Collector's Edition, and I actually enjoyed Resident Evil 3 Remake quite a bit. I'm not sure if I prefer it over the original Resident Evil 3, unlike Resident Evil 2 Remake, which I think is the definitive Resident Evil 2 experience, but I did greatly enjoy Resident Evil 3 Remake, so I would definitely recommend checking that out. Then next up is the Final Fantasy VII Remake First Class Edition. Of course, Final Fantasy VII Remake was one of my most hyped games for the year, and I splurged a little bit on this collector's edition. Unfortunately, it wasn't all contained within one box, so you got actually two separate boxes. The box that included the Hardy Daytona with the Cloud Strife figure, and then separately you got the Final Fantasy VII Remake Deluxe Edition. But it is what it is. I absolutely loved the game. I think Square Enix did a fantastic job of really adding that much more life and story behind what was already one of my favorite games of all time. And Final Fantasy VII Remake is on my shortlist for Game of the Year nominations. So whether you're an old school Final Fantasy VII fan or you've never played Final Fantasy VII before, I absolutely encourage you to check out Final Fantasy VII Remake. Then next up was another game I was pretty excited for, and that is Doom Eternal, and I picked up the Doom Eternal Collector's Edition. I was a little disappointed with this one when they first announced it as the Collector's Edition itself. The Doom 2016 Collector's Edition came with an awesome Revenant statue, and I was hoping this one would come with a statue as well, but it came with the Slayer, the Doom Slayer, or whatever, Doom guy's helmet, whatever you want to call him. And it's cool enough, but I'm far less excited for a helmet compared to a really neat statue, but of course I had to get the Collector's Edition for Doom Eternal, and I think Doom Eternal was a fantastic follow-up to 2016. I actually think it did almost everything better than 2016. The only thing that I was kind of missing was some of kind of like the secret level, unlockable sort of thing that was in the first game. This one has its fair share of collectibles and things like that, but gameplay-wise, I think they really amped it up, made it really fast-paced. And I like some of the changes, like the hook with the super shotgun, the flamethrower, and the chainsaw mechanics, I think really made for some interesting gameplay. And this game actually really ties the entire story of the Doom franchise together, which I think was really neat. Then one of the most recent collector's editions I picked up was for The Last of Us Part 2. And again, along with Final Fantasy VII Remake, Last of Us 2 was one of the most anticipated games of the year for me. The Last of Us 1 was my favorite game for the PlayStation 3, one of my favorite games from the last generation, and one of my favorite games, period. And despite some goofy debates and things that people are upset about, The Last of Us 2, I thought, was an amazing follow-up to the first game. It is currently my pick for Game of the Year, although there is some recency bias there, so we'll see how things kind of pan out through the rest of the year. One game that is going to be excluded from this because it was a digital purchase was Half-Life Alyx, and that was actually kind of my leading Game of the Year pick, even over Final Fantasy VII Remake. Currently, I'm really feeling like The Last of Us Part 2 is my current Game of the Year choice. But what an awesome collector's edition. The statue, I think, was a fantastic choice for what they did. Really has some additional meaningfulness to it, and really happy to add that to the collection. Then another collector's edition that I never did an unboxing video for because I got this kind of randomly way later after the game came out, and that is the Code Vein Bloodthirst edition. Now this was an import that I had to get because the Code Vein Revenant edition pretty much sold out immediately when it was first released. I've talked about this before, but I ended up finding a really good price on a Bloodthirst edition. I think I can't remember exactly. I think I might have imported this from Singapore, but because it was so late, I decided not to do a unboxing video for this. But I have the statue of Mia put together, and I actually had to get a new display case because I ran out of space in my previous display case for some of these new collector's editions. But this is pretty sweet. I had a ton of fun with this game. A lot of people say kind of like anime Dark Souls, but I think it's a fair comparison, but it kind of detracts from the things that separate Code Vein from the Dark Souls games. Definitely recommend it. A lot of fun. Really hoping they do a sequel. And along with that, I also ordered a Code Vein Memory Echoes, which is a mini graphic novel that ties in with the story and kind of complete all the available Code Vein collectibles, I guess, as it were. And then a couple smaller size collector's edition. This will kind of roll into my next segment of limited run pickups, which are a staple in all my pickup videos. But this one I ordered quite a while ago. I thought it was really neat that limited run was doing a PC release, which everybody just neglects the PC, which is unfortunate. And this one I thought was really exciting. I already had this game digitally, but I was like, heck yeah, I can get a new big box PC game for my collection, and that is the System Shock Enhanced Edition, Collector's Edition. Now, this game has been out for quite a while, but here we are with a big box PC release. And this is a remastered version that essentially just is playable on modern PCs and with current resolutions. Now, there's actually a remake of this coming, which was made available via Kickstarter, which I actually backed that. I'm pretty excited for that. This game actually comes on an old school floppy disk that has a USB drive. You don't actually use the floppy disk itself. It comes with a little figure, some additional decals. I'm in no rush to open this up. Not that I'm intending to keep this sealed per se, but for the time being, I haven't had a reason specifically to open it, so I still haven't done that. But pretty happy to have that. Then lastly, for collector's editions is another recent one that I received that I was really excited for. This was a game I was really hoping that would get a physical release, and thanks to limited run, sure enough, we have that. I will be playing this one pretty soon, I hope. I was planning on playing this a couple weeks ago, but decided to push it back for some other random games, and now it's shuffled into the backlog. But that is the Blasphemous Collector's Edition. This is a really cool kind of action platformer. Some comparisons to Dark Souls in a way, but it has a very neat, like, gothic, kind of like Spanish Inquisition, dark twist to it. And this comes with like a sword, soundtrack, the game, some other goodies. And of course, as always, you get the limited run trading card with that as well. And I've heard nothing but great things about this game, and I hope to get to it soon. But we're kind of jumping right into some other big releases coming up here, so I don't know when I will be getting to that. Well, and then keeping up with the other limited run releases that I've gotten recently is Valhalla, which is kind of a, they call it cyberpunk bartender action. It's kind of a interesting game. You are a bartender, and I don't really know how to describe it. I've just heard a lot of really great things. It looks really cool. I love the art to the game. And of course, it comes with the art card as well. And we'll get to this one eventually. I wish I could really say more about it, but it's one of those games that I'm just kind of going off of what a lot of praise that it's received. Then next up, we have Gris. Now, you might have seen that I have talked about this game before. I actually picked up the special reserve release of Gris they did for the Switch, which I thought was a fantastic package. Special reserve does, I think, the best kind of limited print games. They include a nice cardboard case, hardcover manual, and sometimes some extra things with that. And Limited Run did their release for the PlayStation 4, so I wanted to get this game for the PlayStation 4. This is an absolutely fantastic game. It was my indie game of the year for last year, I think. When was this? I think this was released last year. I can't remember at this point. Great game. Definitely recommend checking it out. And along with this actually came with a few postcards and, of course, the art card as well. And then, speaking of special reserve games, they released the Hotline Miami collection for the Nintendo Switch. I haven't opened this up yet because I don't need to. I have the game digitally. I actually have another version, a PC version, physical PC version of this, released as the Gamers Edition. I actually did an unboxing video for that. That was some years ago. Very awesome collector's edition. Probably one of the more like rare things in my collection. Just very low print for that in general, but that was pretty neat. But I absolutely love the Hotline Miami games. If you haven't played them, definitely check them out. It's more than just hard gameplay game. There's a really cool story, but on top of the cool story, the cool art style, and it's all backed by an amazing soundtrack by some awesome synthwave artists like Perturbator, Moon, Jasper Burns, El Huervo. I mean, it's so good. Both of these games are absolutely fantastic. I actually did a review for Hotline Miami 2. That was one of the first videos I did on my channel that, you know, it hasn't aged well. I think I've become a better creator in talking on camera since then, but I would definitely recommend checking out my review for Hotline Miami 2 if you haven't seen it or haven't played the game or just want to know a little bit more about that. Well, before we jump into the final stuff that I have here, there's a couple things I want to just shout out for my Shantae collection. I know a lot of people already are aware that there is a Shantae Funko Pop figure now, and I decided to pick up a couple of those. The one to open, one to keep unopened, even though Funko Pops don't really have sealed boxes. And then I also got something that I think is particularly cool, and that is a signed print by Christina V herself, and she is the voice actress for Shantae. And I think it's pretty neat that she personalized it for me, and it's probably one of my favorite things in my entire collection at this point. Alright, so then into some of the other things that I've picked up recently. This one I actually got a while ago. I kind of feel bad I haven't gotten to it yet, but I've been playing lots of games, and this has a lot of games on it that I need to play. But whatever, it is the TurboGrafx 16 Mini. This is much like the NES Classic, the SNES Classic, and the Sega Genesis Mini. This is a mini console with 40 built-in games, some Japanese exclusives, but a whole bunch of great games. Stuff like Blazing Lasers, R-Type, Neotopia, Ninja Spirit, Splatterhouse, Ys Book 1 and 2, Bonk's Revenge. Just a ton. Like, there's more games on this than all those other systems, and I think it's pretty awesome, but I haven't gotten to this yet. I really need to. I am so unfamiliar with the TurboGrafx, besides what a friend of mine who got really big into collecting for the TurboGrafx had introduced me to, but I have the opportunity to do that. I just need to make the time for it. Then next up is a fantastic remake, one of the best remakes that I've played. This is like how you do a remake, and that is Trials of Mana, which is the remake of Seiken Densetsu 3, or Secret of Mana 2, which we never got in the US officially. I'd played it last year, actually, before this was even announced. I'd picked up a repro cart, thought it was time that I played that, so played through Seiken Densetsu 3, really enjoyed it. Played through Trials of Mana, enjoyed it even more. There's some great quality of life improvements. I love how they really adapted that old style into like the 3D models and whatnot, and I think this is a really great game. It still plays pretty old school, so as a remake, you know, they didn't necessarily modernize it a whole lot, so that's something to bear in mind, but I would highly recommend Trials of Mana, and this is a really great game. And then one of the most recent games that I've picked up that I'm really hoping that I'll probably be playing within the next few days is Mortal Kombat 11 Aftermath. I think it's actually the Mortal Kombat 11 collection. I'm not sure how this is being branded, but I didn't pick up Mortal Kombat 11 at launch because I was kind of salty about the collector's edition that they did. It was a bust. It was overly expensive. I love the modern Mortal Kombat games, so this one I decided that I was going to wait until like the Game of the Year or Complete Edition came out, and this just got released. And this is Mortal Kombat 11 with all the unlockable characters, and what's really neat that they didn't really do before with some of the last Mortal Kombat games is there's actually a significant story expansion, and that is the Aftermath part of this. I've managed to avoid spoilers and stuff. I've heard the story's pretty cool, but I really enjoy the modern Mortal Kombat games, and can't wait to finally play this one. The next up was a few games I managed to get for a very good deal through Best Buy sales. I think I think there's like $5 or $10 each. Can't remember exactly, but I saw the prices, I saw the sale posting, I was like, heck yeah, I'm gonna grab those. So first up here is Yakuza Kawami. This is the remake of the original Yakuza game. I actually just finished playing through Yakuza 0. I've never played any of the other Yakuza games. Enjoyed the game quite a bit, though I'm not sure, it's probably gonna be quite a while before I play another Yakuza game. I mean, I enjoyed the story. Wasn't so crazy about the gameplay, but I definitely do want to see where the story takes Kiryu and Majima, as the story was pretty crazy, a lot of fun. And now with this, I have most of the Yakuza games in one way or another. The next up is a game that I've heard nothing but people just absolutely praising this game, and that is Slay the Spire. And this is kind of like it's a card game where you're playing a card game, but you're fighting your way up a spire. And from what I hear, this is like one of the best versions of that sort of game. This one I am going entirely off of what people have said about it. There's been some people hyping it in the Cartridge Club quite a bit, and for the price, I was like, yep, I'm gonna get that. Looking forward to checking this one out. And then another game that I've been looking forward to getting for quite a while is Tetris Effect. This can be played without VR, but this is basically a VR Tetris game, and I've heard nothing but the best about it. Really need to play some more VR. I've been kind of slacking on that lately, but this will likely be the next VR game that I play. Then I picked up a couple older games, although these are brand new older games. Earlier this year, the Cartridge Club had played Ori and the Blind Forest as Game of the Month, and I had the digital version that I played on PC, but I wanted a physical copy because, of course I did, so I picked up Ori and the Blind Forest Definitive Edition. I'm kind of bummed that I waited on this because there was a Steelbook version of this game that was available for a really, really long time, and it was a really long time that I was like, I should buy that. I mean, years, actually, that the Steelbook version was available. And then, of course, with the sequel of the game coming out earlier this year, everybody else was kind of thinking the same thing I was. And, of course, the Steelbook version had finally sold out, and the price shot up. But fortunately, I was able to find a standard version, brand new sealed, so that's pretty neat. Happy to add that to my collection, and that is the PC version of that. And then along with that, again, I picked up another older game. Recently, there was a documentary about Arcane Studios. Arcane is a fantastic game developer. Most recently, they made Prey, Dishonored, but one of my favorite arcade games, and I think is totally underrated. I know a lot of people are familiar with it, but it seems like not enough people have played this, and that is Might and Magic Dark Messiah. Now, this is essentially the spiritual successor to Arx Fatalis, and Dishonored was actually kind of the spiritual successor to Dark Messiah. And this is essentially a first-person action-adventure. There's magic, but the focus of the combat is sword. You can use a bow. Has some really great physics. This was an early Source Engine game that really, really took advantage of the Source Engine. Some fantastic physics, but it was a lot of fun, and I was able to, surprisingly enough, like, what is it, like 15 years later, when was this game originally released? 2006. I was able to find a still sealed copy with the slip cover for PC, which was very nice. If you've never played Dark Messiah, I totally recommend it. If you haven't played any of the Arcane Studio games, definitely recommend it. They are an awesome, awesome dev, but especially Dark Messiah. This game is sweet. And then lastly here, we got a few other media items to add to the collection, besides games. Of course, I like soundtracks and video game movies, and if it's video games, it goes in my collection. This one, a friend actually gave this to me. I think he either got it for free or he got it from like a dollar bin or something. And I thought, I was like, hey, that's pretty nice for him to think of me. I don't really have much connection to this, but this is the Assassin's Creed Lineage, which is a live-action movie, not the... Is this the only Assassin's Creed movie? I'm not sure. I think initially I was thinking of the Prince of Persia movie, but I don't really know much about this. But again, like I said, I don't really have much connection to the Assassin's Creed series. I played the first Assassin's Creed game and kind of got tired with it. So this was long before like the other Assassin's Creed games were released, so I've heard some of the later releases were pretty cool. So I don't know if I will get to those at any point in the near future. I don't have any of the other Assassin's Creed games, and you know, maybe I'll watch the movie at some point. Who knows? But one movie that I will definitely watch that I didn't even know existed, the Final Fantasy VII Advent Children Complete. Now, I was absolutely familiar with Final Fantasy VII Advent Children. I used to have this on DVD in like the special edition collector's pack, which unfortunately I don't have anymore. Years ago, I sold off like my entire DVD collection, and it was kind of like right at the time when I was just transitioning to more focusing on video game collecting, and kind of the other stuff wasn't really a part of that, but now very much, you know, I wish I would have kept that. But anyways, Final Fantasy VII Advent Children Complete is an extended version of Advent Children. I believe there's somewhere between like 20 and 30 minutes added to the movie that thankfully Tom of Do You Nerd told me about. I had no idea that there was an extended version. This was released quite a while ago. But I was pretty happy I was able to pick this up for a very great price, a lot cheaper than what people were selling them for. And this is the Blu-ray. Still haven't gotten around to watching this yet. I have it, so I can basically watch it whenever I am ready. And then keeping going with the Final Fantasy VII. Like I said, I love Final Fantasy VII. I love Final Fantasy VII Remake. And actually, way back in the day, if anybody remembers the old days of good old Napster and Kazaa, and downloading MP3s with a 56K dial-up modem, I used to do that quite a bit. And some of the first things that I used to download once I had a computer and I had internet was video game soundtracks. Final Fantasy VI, Chrono Trigger, Secret of Evermore, and of course Final Fantasy VII. I actually still have the original files that I downloaded like in like 2000, 2001, somewhere around there, of Final Fantasy VII. But I thought it was time to actually pick up the Final Fantasy VII complete soundtrack. Now this is like the second printing of this. This isn't the original Final Fantasy VII complete soundtrack, but it's Final Fantasy VII complete soundtrack, so I am pretty happy to have this. I've kind of been building my soundtrack collection for some time now, so I'm kind of getting like the main, like my favorite soundtracks. I'm trying to make sure I have them in my collection, and got most of them. And with that, another one of my favorite soundtracks needed to add to my collection is Deltarune Chapter 1. Now, Deltarune is the follow-up to Undertale. It's not a sequel, but it does use a lot of the same characters. But this is the first part of what will eventually be a complete game, and much like Undertale, the soundtrack is composed by Toby Fox, and it is a banger. I have multiple copies of Undertale's soundtrack in my collection, and I thought, hey, why not add Deltarune to that as well? And that is it. That's all the stuff I picked up. So, you know, it's a bit, but in the grand scheme of the amount of time that it's been since my last pickup video, I've actually slowed down quite a bit. But nonetheless, there's a few games here, a lot of really quality stuff, a bunch of stuff I really need to get to play in. So, as always, I would love to hear your thoughts on some of these games. Any of these you picked up yourself? Any of these games you played? And how about those Game of the Year contenders? What's on your short list for Game of the Year? So yeah, please let me know your thoughts in the comments. And then, as always, thank you very much for watching, and I will talk to you next time on the Game Grinder.